Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Evan Schneider, and today we're going to be talking about how to use conversion LUTs within a DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate workflow. Now, if you've never heard of DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, or if you're a little bit unclear on what that means or what that is, DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate is a working color space that is specifically for DaVinci Resolve. Now, it's kind of like ACES, the same concept, but a bit more of a seamless, easier, simplified workflow. Now, the first benefit is that it has a very wide gamut and it can handle HDR workflows. This means that it's a very large sandbox and there's no clipping that occurs when working in HDR DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. The second benefit, which I think is actually a very underrated and under talked about benefit, is that it provides a unified working color space for you to do all of your adjustments within. Now, this means that no matter what camera you're shooting on, what the source format is, whether it's log footage like S-Log2 C Gamut3.cine or Apple Log, or even if you're working with Rec. 709 source footage from a normal profile, converting to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate ensures that the tools feel the exact same no matter what footage you're working on. The huge benefit of this is that it creates consistency in your color grade, but it also makes you a faster colorist and it makes the tools feel predictable in terms of what adjustments you're making. Now, the problem kind of arises if you're used to using normal conversion LUTs that convert from your camera color space to your display color space like Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. All of my conversion LUTs on the LUTco store convert from the camera color space to a display color space of Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. So how do you combine a DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate workflow with normal camera conversion LUTs? Now, the main concept here is that we want to do all of our adjustments first and then output from those adjustments to the LUT with what the LUT is expecting into it. So this leads me to kind of one prerequisite for this workflow is that your camera format must be supported in DaVinci Resolve for this to work properly. If you're shooting in Canon C-Log2, Sony S-Log2 C Gamut3.cine, Panasonic V-Log, Blackmagic Film Gen 5, all of those kind of things, Apple Log, you can use this workflow and utilize DaVinci Wide Gamut and then output into your camera color space. All right, so here we are in DaVinci Resolve and I have a few clips to work with here. This one was shot in Sony S-Log2 C Gamut3.cine. This was shot in F-Log2. This is also Sony S-Log2 C Gamut3.cine. And then this was shot in DJI D-Log. So the first thing that I'll mention is if we go down to our gear icon here, we can go to our project settings and I'll go to color management and you'll see that I'm working in DaVinci YRGB color science. My timeline color space is DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate and my output color space is Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. Now I'm outputting the same color space that my display right here is calibrated to. You can also use Rec. 709 Gamma 2.2, you can use Rec. 709A. And the timeline color space doesn't necessarily set the color processing mode when you're using DaVinci YRGB mode. It more determines how some of the tools respond. So the HDR color wheels, for instance, are color space aware, so they're going to be referencing what I have my timeline color space set to. So since we want to do our adjustments mainly in DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, I'm setting that as my timeline color space because that is how I want these tools to respond that are color space aware. Now, if we are working in DaVinci YRGB color manage mode, that's a different story because the timeline color space does determine how the tools respond, and it does make all of the tools respond differently because you're setting your input transform before everything, before the timeline and before the color page, and you're setting your output transform after everything. And so you don't have access to those two transformations. So you want to make sure that you're working in DaVinci YRGB mode, your timeline color space is DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, and your output is Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. Next, we want to set up our node tree so that we can perform the adjustments that we want to within DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. So the first node that we're going to set up is a CST, and we're going to drag color space transform onto this node. I'm going to call this node DWG in. And in this node, we're going to be converting from the camera color space to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. So since this is Sony S-Log2 footage, I'm going to set the input color space to Sony S Gamut 3.cine and then Sony S-Log2. And then my output color space, I'm going to set to DaVinci Wide Gamut. My output gamut is going to be DaVinci Intermediate. For tone mapping, we're going to use the normal DaVinci tone mapping. I think it looks great and it serves a great purpose for, general use. So after this node is where all of our corrections are going to take place. However, we need to set up the rest of our pipeline before we go in and do the actual grading. So I'm going to leave this node blank, and we're going to create a new node by hitting Option S. And this node is going to be our DaVinci Wide Gamut out. So DWG out. We're going to drag another color space transform on here, but there's actually an easier way to do this. I can actually just option drag from DWG in to DWG out, and it's copied the color space transform to this node. Now the only thing that we have to do is swap the input and output, because like I said, we want to come in from S-Log2 to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and we want to go out to S-Log2 because our LUT is expecting S-Log2 S Gamut 3.cine. So I'm going to hit swap. Now we're going from in, which is DaVinci Wide Gamut, we're going out to S-Log2. And now you can see if I highlight all of these nodes and turn them on and off, there is absolutely no difference happening whatsoever. So that means that we've done it correctly, because we don't want any change to happen if everything is off from S-Log2 to DaVinci Wide Gamut and back. Next, we want to make another node, and we're going to add a label, and we're going to call this LUT. And this is where we will apply our normal conversion LUT from the camera color space to Rec 709. So I have here my S-Log2 to Rec 709 conversion LUTs, and I'm just going to use the base LUT right now. And I'm going to double click that and it'll apply it to this node. And now we're seeing the proper image as it was intended in Rec 709, which is our display color space. So this LUT is converting from S-Log2 S Gamut 3.cine to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, which is what our display is calibrated to. And now we're seeing a normal image. So I can also flip through any of these other LUTs and we can kind of see what they look like. This is the beauty of the S-Log2 LUT pack with the creative LUTs, is that there's a lot of different looks to choose from. So the beauty of this is that we're not working in a DaVinci YRGB color managed mode, but we're doing it all manually using nodes, and we're still utilizing DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate for a big color space to do our corrections in, high quality, and predictable results with the tools, but we're able to still use the conversion LUTs that we want to. I'm going to go back to the base LUT and just apply that here. And then you can see in this node here is where we're going to do our adjustments. So like I said, my favorite tool to use for exposure, stuff like that, color balance, is in the HDR palette, and it's the global wheel. And you can see that it responds very organically when we use it. And so I'm going to go over to my waveform, and I'm just going to put the skin tones where I usually like them. Maybe we'll add a little bit more contrast. Maybe we'll add a little bit of saturation. And then maybe we'll just warm it up a little bit. So say those are our corrections. I'm going to hit Command D. So this is before and this is after, before and after. Now, if we wanted to do more adjustments, we would just do them in between the DWG in and out. Oh, I need to relabel this because I copied the node. We would just do them in between here because we want to be grading inside of a DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate color space. So say we wanted to do a power window, I'll hit Shift S, we can make a new node before, and I can just make a basic circular power window on her face. And we can bring that up a little bit. And then we can track it on there by hitting Command T. There we go. Now we have a nice little circular power window on her face. We can make it a little bit smaller. Those kinds of things. And so we can do all of our corrections within the DWG in and out. And there we go. Now we have a basic node tree utilizing all of this different stuff. Now, the other benefit of using this workflow over a DaVinci Wide RGB color managed mode is that we can actually make adjustments after the conversion LUT in our display referred color space, which is Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. This is something that you can only do if you're color managing manually in the node tree. So if I hit Option S, we can make a new node after this, and maybe we'll call this secondaries. And here we can make any final adjustments. Maybe we want to shift the black level a little bit, shift the white level, maybe pull the shadows up a tiny bit. Just small adjustments that maybe we want to kind of tweak whatever the LUT is doing. So say we want to bring a little bit more shadow detail, we can just bring this black level up and pull this down, maybe bring up a tiny bit of shadow detail, something like that. We want to soften the shadows a little bit, create a little bit of a curve here. We can always do those after in our display referred space. And just because of how I learned color, I feel very comfortable working in a display referred space. I like making adjustments after the LUT. It feels more predictable, it feels a little bit more granular, and I like having access to that ability at the end of the node tree. Now, say we want to copy this node tree, we want to create kind of a template node tree to paste across all of the different shots. Let's make a new version, hitting Command Y, and I'm just going to delete the nodes that are specific to this shot, like the face. I'm going to reset the balance node. I'm going to reset the secondaries node, and I'm just going to hit Clean Up Node Graph to get everything in order. Next, I'm going to create a still of this by grabbing a still, and you can see in my gallery, I have a still now, and it has all of the node changes on that still. The other thing we can do is hit Option 1, and it saves it to our first preset, and then we can apply that using Command 1 on the other clips. So I'm going to go to the next clip, I'm going to hit Command 1, and now we've applied that node tree to this clip. Now, the only thing that we have to change here is that this shot I know was shot in F-Log2. All we have to do is change the DaVinci Wide Gamut in and out and the LUT to be specific to this footage. So I'm going to set the input color space to Rec. 2020 because that's what F-Log2 shoots in, and then Fujifilm F-Log2. And then I'm going to go to my out, and I'm going to go to Rec. 2020 and Fuji F-Log2. The next thing I need to do is change the LUT from F-Log2 to Rec. 709 instead of Sony. Here I have my F-Log2 LUTs, and I'm going to go to just the natural Rec. 709. And now we've converted from F-Log2 to Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. And it's important to use the proper LUT because different log formats have different color primaries. And so what one value might mean in one camera format does not necessarily mean the same color value in another. So you want to make sure that you're using a camera specific conversion LUT and you know what the in and out of that LUT is. So now we've set up the same workflow, we can do the same type of adjustments, and the tools feel and respond the exact same as they did for the Sony footage, even though we're using different camera formats. The next shot we can go to and we can just apply the grade from the first one because we know that this is also Sony, and instantly right off the bat it's looking incredible. We can make any adjustments that we feel are necessary, maybe warm it up a little bit, anything like that. So this next shot was shot in DJI D-Log, so all I have to do is hit Command 1 again, and we've applied our node tree, and we can go to our in, we can go to DJI D-Gamut and DJI D-Log to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then our out will go from DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate to DJI D-Log again. Then we just need to change the conversion LUT, and we'll apply that right here. And now we have a Rec. 709 image, and our balance node is working within DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. Now, one little workflow tip that you can do for these is you could use grouping, and so you could group together the clips that are the same format. So for instance, these two clips of Sony footage, I can add into a new group, and I can call this S-Log3, and I'll hit enter. And now these two clips, you can see this little link icon these two clips are in the same group. And so now I could actually apply this base node tree. I'm going to reset all of these and go back to what we had before. And we can kind of set up a DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate workflow using the group pre-clip and group post-clip pages in order to almost create a pseudo DaVinci YRGB color managed mode using groups. So in the group pre-clip, we're going to go to our color space transform. We're going to do the same thing with Sony S-Gamut3.Cine, Sony S-Log2, and then DaVinci Wide Gamut and DaVinci Intermediate. And then we're going to go to group post clip. We're going to do another color space transform. We're going to go from DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate, to Sony S-Gamut3.Cine and S-Log2. And then after this, we're going to feed in our conversion LUT. So we'll apply the S-Log2 Creative Everyday LUT, and we've converted from S-Log2 to Rec. 709, and we can do any secondary adjustments on this node here if we wanted to. Now, the beauty of this is that if we go to our clip level, it's very clean and it's a very simple node graph. So we know that all of these adjustments on the clip level are going to be within DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. Now, this shot is looking kind of crazy because we're double converting it. So we can just reset this clip, and now we have a normalized image, a clean node tree, and we don't even have to think about the in and out conversions. We can just do it on the clip level, and we know that our group pre-clip is bringing us into DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, and our group post-clip is bringing us out of DWG into our conversion LUT and out to our display color space of Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. If I wanted to make any adjustments on these two clips, anything that I make in the clip level is not going to have any effect on any of the other clips in the group. So say I made that black and white and this is still color. However, if I make any adjustments in the group pre-clip or group post-clip, then that will have an effect on all of the other clips. So if I make this saturation 0, go back to my clip, reset this, and then go to both of my clips in the group. Now they're both black and white because in my group post-clip, I've set the saturation to 0. To be honest though, I feel like the group workflow does save you some time in the beginning when you're setting up and converting clips. However, I think when I get into the thick of the grade, I don't really love switching between all of the different pages. I like to keep everything on the clip level. And so my preference is to have everything not grouped, just have everything on the clip level where I can see the entire node tree. I don't have to switch between pages, and then switching between clips becomes a lot faster. Now, how do I know that the color space aware tools are referencing DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate without actually setting them when I set them in my project settings in the timeline color space? Well, for that, we can do a quick test. I'm going to make an adjustment of exposure +1 in my HDR color wheels. And you can see that this is what it looks like. I'm going to grab a still of that so that we can remember it. And then I'm simply going to go back to my timeline color space. We'll set it to red color 4, red gamma 3, which is the completely wrong format, and we'll hit save. And now you can see that our gamma has shifted and nothing else has changed except for our timeline color space. So this is what it was before, and this is what it is now. And so now we can see we can actually override what the timeline color space is telling the HDR wheels. We can click on these 3 dots. We can go to color space. We're going to set it to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then we're going to go to gamma and set it to DaVinci Intermediate. And now if I A/B what we had before, it's exactly the same. So you can see here, this is before, this is after, it's the exact same. And that's because we overwrote what we had in the timeline color space using these 3 dot menus. I'm going to reset that. We can reset the zone definitions, and it's going to go back, and I'm going to go back to my project settings and set the timeline color space to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate and hit save. So as you can see with this workflow, we're back to where we started, and it just shows that In DaVinci YRGB mode, setting the timeline color space has no effect on the actual color processing under the hood. It only affects metadata, how the tools respond, and if the tools are color space aware, then it's referencing whatever the timeline color space is. Putting a conversion LUT at the end of your node tree from your camera color space to your display color space has virtually no effect on the quality of the output. It's really up to you how you want it to look. A lot of people say that you shouldn't use LUTs because they clip the footage or they make them look bad, but if they are properly designed, properly developed, and you know that you can trust the LUTs, then there's no quality difference. And I think this workflow with utilizing DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, but also being able to use your own conversion LUTs, is kind of the best of both worlds, because you have the consistency, the control, the predictability, and the speed of DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, and you have full control over the image pipeline without using DaVinci YRGB color managed mode, and you have the creative control of using the camera conversion LUTs that you've always used. The one caveat, like I said, is that your camera profile must be supported by DaVinci Resolve for this to work properly. So like I said, for F-Log2 C, F-Gamut C is not yet supported by DaVinci Resolve, and until then, my workaround is using F-Log2 Gamma and then using RE Wide Gamut for the color space. And that's kind of close enough that at least the gamma is right. So if you're doing exposure adjustments using the color wheels, then that's going to be relatively accurate. You're not going to feel the difference too much. And since you're converting in and then out of it, there's no quality difference. It's more just how the tools respond and how they feel might be a little bit different than what you're used to. All right, so that's pretty much it. I hope that made sense. I hope you have a better idea of how to use DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate and use your normal camera conversion LUTs in this workflow. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I try to respond to as many as possible. If you're interested in my conversion LUTs or my Super 8mm emulation called Fake 8 Film Lab, you can check those out at lutcompany.com. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.